So I'm going to have to go with Mark Griffin lookalike Daniel Craig. Right there.
That is.
Yeah. I'd like a vodka martini.
Brought to you by our friends of the British Council. Hey everybody, welcome to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 in New York City, and we have another dandy of a show, a mega show for you, and it's got pundits from all over the globe, including Mr. George Hook, calling in from Ireland, Mr. Peter Jackson calling in from Wales, Mr. Steve Lewis here in the studio with me, as is birthday boy Martin Pengelly. Gentlemen, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Let's get right into it, fellas. We had a smashing Six Nations start, and we have another weekend of spectacular Six Nations rugby ahead of us. We had predictions. Some of them might be a little bit off base because the teams that we picked might not make it to where we thought. But we've also got some big topics that I'd like to speak to you guys about, including Prince Harry, Le Choke, and a tale of two fullbacks. Mr. Hook, I'd like to start with you about Ireland. I know that you felt that they were a bit one-dimensional in their dramatic victory.
Well, I told you last week that it was rubbish coming up, and it was rubbish. For the first time in recorded history, the commercials on the Super Bowl were better than the rugby on the Six Nations. Look at it. Italy and Wales were absolutely in the match right up to the anthem. After 10 minutes, games were over. Aggregate score 80 points to 22 against Scotland, Italy. Ireland against France, snooze back. Next year, they're going to cancel the game, and the two fly-outs are going to practice drop goals at the halfway line, and the guy who gets the most drop goals wins. It was awful. So Ireland are without any element of attack, never looked like scoring a try, and to be fair, not a drop goal, but an extraordinary restart by Sexton after the missed penalty, and they got the ball back, which led to 41 consecutive runs and a drop goal. And that's all. That's the match over and just gone.
Yeah, and you know, the drop kick to Henderson, who miraculously got it, then phase after phase, and then the kick to Earls, which had all of us jumping out of our seats, condemning him like, what are you doing? And then the phases, and then the drop goal in a wet environment. Just remarkable.
Well, if your rugby is 2 minutes of rugby, you'll enjoy it. But if you want to sit near front of your television for 80 minutes of Wales, Scotland, and 80 minutes of Ireland, France, then you're going to be a zombie.
All right. Well, you bring up Scotland, and that brings us to a segue to Scotland, Wales. I had the pleasure of watching the match with you, Steve, and while he was giddy, while he thought Ireland was going to lose because he wanted Ireland to lose because I wanted them to win, and he had a couple of shots of whiskey in him, he was not happy with the performance of his Scots against Mr. Jackson's Welsh team. And, you know, got to bring up who I think was the player of the weekend, and that's a guy who was forgotten in a way, Lee Halfpenny. His goal kicking was 6 for 6, including 2 touchline conversions and a second half penalty from 45 meters that would have cleared it from midfield. He had 24 points, 2 tries, 2 penalties, 4 conversions, rock solid defense. Steve, where was your fullback?
Didn't get any ball. Well, from a Scottish perspective, right, the falsest of false dawns. There was wailing and gnashing of teeth, and not just in the pig and whistle. But it was a very depressing game. The 10 minutes played particularly well, and then that interception try, the kind of wind went out their sails. Wales scored a good try thereafter, and Scotland continued to play high-risk rugby when they needed to claw themselves back in the game. So there was no plan B. Plan A, playing adventurous, they just weren't accurate enough to pull it off. I think it was 12, 13 handling errors. Half-time, I thought they'd rein it in a little bit, but nope, came back out and just played into Welsh hands. I mean, it was a committed Welsh performance. It was a great Welsh performance, but it wasn't a world-beating performance. Scotland were that bad on the day.
Peter, Warren Gatland, what do you have to say about Warren Gatland after that match?
Well, the country had been waiting a long time for a performance like that, probably 5 years. Wales were very smart. Scotland were the exact opposite. I give Warren Gatland full credit. They read Scotland's defensive lines. The intercept try probably had been rehearsed on the training ground. You mentioned Lee Halfpenny. Nobody has ever questioned his defensive ability, his ability in front of goal, but there had been a lot of questioning of his attacking threats and whether, in fact, his time was up. So it was a very timely loss from Halfpenny. You said he was the outstanding player. I disagree. I think probably Rhys Patchell was the outstanding player, the Scarlet.
Prince Harry?
Sorry?
Prince Harry?
Prince Harry, was he there? I don't know. I'm not a...
No, Patchell is he's a Prince Harry lookalike. Apparently.
I thought it was another member of the royal family at the game. Yeah, he does look a bit like him. He's a much better rugby player. I think he's very smart. Patchell. All 34 points scored were scored by Scarlets. So in a way, it was Scarlets 34, Scotland 7. Scotland were abysmal, and no two ways about that. But then it's the old adage about play as well as your opponent allows. For Wales, so many performances. It was a wonderful form of reassurance that the old country hasn't quite lost the ability to outwit opposition. I thought they were a bit lucky with the forward pass try at the end for Parks. Probably the officials thought Parks' mum and dad had come from New Zealand, so it would have been a bit unfair to rubbed it out. But back to what George says about Ireland, France, I agree with him. I thought it was singularly one-dimensional. I'm not surprised about that. I also thought that the Johnny Sexton drop goal was the greatest drop goal in the history of the Six Nations. It's more to the drop goals than just the execution of the goal itself. It was the patience, the discipline, the composure that Ireland scored. France helped them a bit by not competing as much as they could have done, because I think they were afraid of being penalised. And in the end, although people felt sorry for France, they had themselves to blame, because below Mr. shot at goal, 3 minutes from time, which would have forced Ireland to try and score a try, and that would have been France home and dry, no question. So they got away with it.
Well, Peter, I got to stop you there because we have to break. And when we come back, I want to get to Martin, talk a little bit about England beating Italy, and a little bit more about France and what their heroic defense means going forward. But we'll be right back after this.
If you're just joining us, this is a big match and a big moment as Clijsters toes the line.
You know, John, Anderson has really been struggling out there today. Huge mistake as Clijsters clinches another title. Don't let your nutrition get in the way. USANA, the official multivitamin of the WTA.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy with the esteemed global panel of George Hook, Peter Jackson, Steve Lewis, and Martin Pengelly. Gentlemen, we left off with Peter talking about Ireland and Johnny Sexton's discipline, but I want to segue, Mr. Pengelly, to you with England, and I want to ask this. It's a two-part question, really. Does the Welsh win justify Gatland taking so many Welsh players over Scottish choices, perhaps, on the British and Lions tour? And is this just pure gamesmanship by Gatland? According to Wales Online, Andy Howell's Q&A, he asked this question of Gatland: what sort of job do you think Eddie Jones would do if he was Lions coach in South Africa in 2021? And Gatland responded Well, he'll do a great job as Lions coach. 3-0 will be expected. It's probably the easiest of the 3 tours, isn't it?
Where do you want me to start on that one? Well, I could start with not rising to the bait that you're giving me to annoy Steve by talking about last year's Lions tour.
Again.
By all means.
I can annoy Steve on my own time, I think. I think that's a moot point, I would say.
A moot point?
A moot point. In terms of Eddie Jones for the Lions, I think Eddie Jones would do a good job with the Lions because Eddie Jones is a spectacularly good coach, or he certainly is a spectacularly good coach in short-term situations. He tends to not last too long in jobs, and so this England contract being extended takes him into the territory where sometimes he leaves jobs.
But here we are on the eve of their match, and he is just a little thing, little tweak, saying, "Hey, you know,
you want kidology, then Gatland and Jones are going to give you the kidology. Gatland does it every year. Jones will do something back, and that's part of the build-up to the game.
It makes more for the entertainment.
Yeah, it's just building up the game, and it's going to be a good one. I mean, I don't think probably because I'm English and biased. I don't think the Welsh performance was as good as all that. To be honest, if playing devil's advocate, they left. Well, they shouldn't have had the final try. That was a forward pass. That shouldn't have stood, and they left a couple of tries out there that shouldn't have been. Both, I think, off Alan Wynne-Jones breaks and passes, particularly in the first half. Josh Adams close to the line. I think England against Italy, it was a better game than you might have thought by the scoreline, 46-15. It was Italy played well. They were inexperienced. England looked pretty slick. And some of their players who came in filling in holes were startling successes. Sam Simmons, third choice, number 8, if that, and serious pace on him. I mean, he's playing against Italy, so you wouldn't judge too much on that. So I think England-Wales is a good game. I think England will win it. I still think Scotland will beat England.
All right. Okay. Well, George and Steve, I've got a question for you guys that I want you to kind of piggyback each other on. Les choke, because Steve, we were sitting in the Pig and Whistle, and when Anthony Belleau, is that how you say his last name?
Not bad.
Missed the penalty kick, I just yelled "Les choke." Steve looked at me with a little glint and smile and said "Les choke," and then sure enough, we had that dramatic, historic turn of events. Do you think, though, with the whole ending of that match with the knee / was it a head injury, George? We spoke off camera, and you think that wasn't really any cheating on the French part, right?
What I'm saying is that there is a far too simplistic approach about what happened to the French player. If you look at the footage, there was head contact, even though he suffered the injury. Now, either you believe in the HIA, the head injury assessment, or you don't believe that it has any value, that the doctor must say, I need to look at this because the guy's head has come in contact with the other guy. If you believe that, the assessment may be rubbish, but if you believe in it, then you must stay with it.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, the choice is either the French cheated or the process is wrong. And Brunel's comment was that the doctor is independent and the doctor made the determination that there was a head injury assessment needed to be assessed.
The French doctor?
Independent doctor.
He's a French doctor.
I don't know about that. But the whole point of their assertion was it wasn't their decision, so it's the doctor's decision. So if that's the case, then you can't blame the French. It's all about process and how accurate are they. And the first one I thought there was head contact. The second one was clearly a knee and nothing else.
Knee to knee.
But anyway, is it an independent doctor? What can they do to improve the process, I suppose, is where they're going to go with this.
All right, and during that whole process of the injury and everything else, Van de Vlier came out, right? George, one of your favorite players, South African in the squad, and he was replaced by Dan Levy, who I think came out with one of the more refreshing quotes. He said, we said when Teddy scored, just get the ball back and hold on, make our way down the field, try to get a penalty, or if we can, score. We worked seriously hard this week and last week, and yeah, Johnny obviously has the biggest balls on the planet and managed to kick it. You don't really get that here in America when a player will actually say something like that. Was that a controversial thing to say over there?
No, I don't think so. But I mean, the key thing about Van der Fleer is that he's as Irish as Paddy's pig, albeit he's a Protestant. But the thing is, the Van der Fleer thing is far more important in a different context. He will not play again in the Six Nations. English from half will not play again in the Six Nations. France have lost 8, 9, and 10. The spine of the team to injury. By the time we get to St. Patrick's Day, for unbelievers, March 17th, by the time we get to St. Patrick's Day, the teams will be selected on the basis of the players still left standing. The Six Nations and rugby union in general now resembles the earp or the song.
All right. We're gonna come back for one more segment, but I wanted to get to Peter real quickly. Peter, I want to go back to that question that I asked Pengelly, who dodged it a little bit. Do you think Gatland is justified now a little bit more? Did he need justification for his Lions selections after they walloped Scotland?
No question. I think that Gatland was quite right to pick as few Scottish players as he did. He saw the Scottish forwards crumble in the cauldron of Twickenham last season when they conceded, 61 points. He made up his mark there and then. But certain Scottish players were not going to be good enough for the tour. And so, no, I think Gatland has got any justification to do as far as that's concerned. Just one thought I thought about Italy. I thought Italy brought a lot more to the tournament on Sunday than they had throughout the season. And in some way, that score perhaps flattered England the flurry of tries.
All right, we'll be right back after this with our predictions for the coming week and a look back on whether we want to change our selections on who's going to win the tournament. We'll be right back.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy with our all-star global pundit panel. Mr. George Hook, Mr. Peter Jackson, Mr. Steve Lewis, and Mr. Martin Pengelly. Gentlemen, we have another weekend coming up. Let's make our predictions. We'll start with George. George, who are your winners this weekend?
Well, it's a bit more difficult, funnily enough, I think, this week. I disagree with everybody. I thought Italy were awful. Their defence had all the consistency of rice pudding. So they're going to lose to Ireland pretty certainly. Smith won't make many changes. He has to with Van der Fleer hurt, and Stockdale, I think, will be dropped after one appearance. Scotland-France, I think, is really enticing in a way, because you got to think Scotland are going to do something in Edinburgh in front of a target mob. At the same time, France, -8, 9, and 10, they're bringing Baptiste back. Lionel Baptiste, who hasn't played in 6 years to play half. I think it's very difficult for France to deliver. So I will go for Scotland. And I still believe that England are better than Wales, even though Wales are.
All right. Mr. Jackson?
I think unquestionably England-Wales is the match of the weekend. England will be wary of Wales. They will remember how Wales jumped out of the World Cup, how Wales won a couple of Grand Slams, strength of wins at Twickenham. Having said that, England are second best in the world. I think England will win, but maybe not by as many as people think. I think Ireland will have to show an awful lot more against Italy in Dublin than they did last week in Paris. Expect Ireland to get it. They must have organised the fixtures because they've got 3 home games now in a row. And Sunday, I think we'll get a surprise. I think Scotland will bounce back and beat France.
All right, Mr. Pengelly.
Well, it's hard to go too far away from that. I think Ireland will beat Italy because that's generally what happened. I think Italy are better than George does. But Ireland will win. I think Scotland will beat France. Scotland can't be as bad as that twice. France can be as bad as that twice because that's what's happened to France. And I think England will beat Wales. I don't think Wales are as good as notably the commentators were suggesting. I also agree it won't be by as many points as some people might think. I think maybe 20-odd 22-15, something like that.
Steve, go ahead.
Ireland, Scotland, and England. England over Wales. Just too much strength and depth. Again, they beat Scotland hands down, but I just don't think they're as strong as that performance sort of looked.
So, other than Ireland stealing one in France, is this going to be a tournament of home team wins?
Well, not if Italy are the home team.
Other than Italy, and France is out of that equation too. But
yeah, I mean, it usually mostly is, isn't it?
I guess out of Ireland, Wales, and England.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to rock the boat a little bit because I did pick Wales to come in second in this tournament, and I have England third. So I'm going to pick Ireland. I'm going to pick Wales. And I think George's point about France being really decimated by the injuries is going to be a factor. And I got a hope for my Scottish friend that they rebound. So I'm going with Scotland.
The kiss of death.
Yeah, that's the kiss of death. That's the kiss of death. Any team I root for loses. Gentlemen, 30 seconds each. Final thoughts. George.
I think Scotland will do better than the first week. I think they'll worry Ireland, definitely. I still think Italy could beat France in Paris. England will still win the championship. I still think it's England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Italy, France. No change.
I said Ireland at the beginning, so I've got to stick with them. Thoroughly unconvincing as they were in the first game. They've got 3 home games to come. Ireland, I think, will go to England for a grand slam. I don't think England will remain unbeaten. I'd love to think Wales will beat them. I can't see it happening. I'd love to see Italy win on the road, play a bit of rugby in Dublin, certainly than they've done in the past.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the same top two. I think it's England 1, Ireland 2. I think Scotland are going to slide down, obviously, now to 4 or 5. Wales will move up. So probably Wales 3, Scotland 4, France 5, Italy 6. So one change in the middle for me.
And one change at the top for me, England 2, Scotland 3. I can see one of those tournaments where different people...
So who are you picking, Ireland on top?
Yeah, Ireland on top still, I think. Maybe with a 4-1. England maybe 4-1 too. Maybe it'll come down to bonus points and points difference.
So you're going Ireland, England, Wales?
Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland, yeah. So Scotland down 2. And then the France and Italy at the bottom.
Because you initially picked Scotland as 2?
I did.
Okay, I'm sticking to my guns. I got Ireland, Wales, England, Scotland, France, and Italy. On that note, gentlemen, before we go, we have to wish our friend Mr. Martin Pengelly a happy birthday. And Steve has a little gift for Martin, which is very important. But before we give him the gift, gentlemen, who's the best Bond? George?
Who's the best who?
James Bond. Who's your best James Bond?
Look, it isn't a contest. It's Sean Connery, and the rest are in the halfpenny place.
Peter?
Yes, can't look beyond Sean Connery, good Scotsman.
Okay. Steve, this is a dumb
Clearly,
question.
Sean Connery.
And Mr. McCarthy.
Can I have the...
I think we have the answer for Martin is none other than Roger Moore.
It's Roger Moore. Obviously, is that the man with the golden gun? It's the man with the golden gun. That's young Roger. I think I'm talking mid-80s Roger as my real man. Fiora's only.
There you go.
Fiora's
show
only
to that one.
Oxpussy. Fiora's only. View to a kill. Everyone else is wrong.
And this is the weekend editor of The Guardian, ladies and gentlemen. This is pretty good. But I'm gonna, Daniel Craig's got to get some credit because he was just in the locker room this weekend with England, right? Daniel Craig, he played rugby. He's the only Bond to play rugby.
Did he play for Moulton and Norton? Is that right? In Yorkshire?
I believe so.
No, it wasn't.
No.
It's Hoylake, Cheshire. Hoylake. That's who it is. But he
played. He played. And on that note, we have to end. Mr. George Hook, Mr. Peter Jackson, Mr. Steve Lewis, and Mr. Martin Pengelly, Matt McCarthy on Rugby Wrap Up. And remember, folks, you can check it out on all the social media platforms. Listen and watch. And we'll be back next week with another scintillating episode with these guys. Thanks, guys. Matt McCarthy signing off.